Alright guys, so you probably already read the title. It's a fuel line tuck video. I've been wanting to put this video out for maybe a couple months now. So I'm just going to do a small voiceover of me talking about the steps and stuff. And hopefully this can clear up a lot of questions you guys have. So I'm going to walk you guys through what parts you're going to need, what tools you're going to need to do this, and just the steps to get this all done. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the 8th video we have now for our wire tucking series, playlist that we have going on here. Now as I keep making videos for you guys, I'm gonna keep adding to this playlist that we have going here. I think this is the 8th one, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the series. So like I said, this is some footage that I had laying around that I eventually wanted to make this video, but now I'm gonna actually put it all together and actually share that with you guys. So I'm not gonna talk too much, guys. Let's get right into it. Alright, so at this point, hopefully you guys already removed your fuel rail and your fuel line that wraps around the valve cover around the side and then hits the fuel line that's behind your valve cover. Now at this point, if you're watching this video or you looked up this video, you're probably wondering what to do next with this fuel line. So don't worry, I got you covered. It's fairly simple. So this next step right here, you just want to cut your fuel line. I cut mine before. You can see it kind of on the left hand side. You can see where I just kind of snipped it. And now we're going to use this tube cutter. Pretty much plumbers use this on their copper lines and stuff. You could find this at Home Depot, or you could find this at Harbor Freight. It's like $5 or $6, fairly cheap. This one I got at Harbor Freight, so you know, just look for one of those. It's fairly simple. There's a bracket that holds this fuel line down. You could just unclip it off of there and then just twist and turn until you're able to cut this thing. Now you guys don't want to cut it with anything else. Use this because then you won't have like sharp edges or anything crazy like that. You'll have just a nice smooth cut. So just cut it with this, don't use anything else. Now once you cut that fuel line right here, you don't have to necessarily cut it right here. You could cut it underneath the chassis where you can't see it. You could tuck it away even better. I just chose this because it was inside the engine bay and I felt like it'll keep it away from debris or from getting damaged underneath the car. So I don't know, I just chose to leave it inside the engine bay like this. I think eventually I will change it and I will cut it underneath the car, but for now this is fine for me. Oh, one more thing guys, if you gotten this far, you're probably wondering what this other line next to it is. It's a little bigger than your fuel line, but that's for your evap. I think I don't really remember that well, but I think it went to your throttle body, your stock one. So if you no longer have that, and you're cleaning up your engine bay anyways, you probably have that just hanging around, I don't know, up the firewall, whatever. Just remove it, cut it right there. Mine's been cut off for maybe 5 or 6 months, 7 months, and I've had no issues. So just cut that right there. Don't cover it, just kind of leave it open. You could cut it underneath the chassis as well so no one can see it. Maybe just bend it upward or something like that and you should be good, guys. So for me, I found that it was a lot more comfortable just to jack up the car, put 2 jack stands, and do everything from underneath the car. So next thing you want to do, Honda or Acura, same thing. They put this rubber coating over your brake lines, most of your lines that go underneath your car. It prevents rust and all that other stuff. But what you want to do, right where you see me kind of using a straight blade or just a blade off of a knife or whatever, you want to scrape off like about an inch off of that rubber coating. Now you can see how uncomfortable it is to do this. This is probably the hardest part of doing this whole process. After you get past this, it's fairly simple and fast. Now when you're doing this part, you want to be careful you don't nick or damage the tubing, guys. You don't want to go too far. You want to just strip off that rubber coating just about an inch. So finally, this is the first part you're gonna need. You're gonna need this Earl's fitting right here. I'm gonna put it up on the screen just so you guys can get the details on it and what you guys need to order. It was about $15 on eBay. It was fairly cheap. They call it a tube adapter. I call it a Earl's tube fitting or whatever, but pretty much that copper line, that copper fitting that's inside, that you see me throw it inside, that's what's gonna pretty much seal your fuel line from leaking and all that stuff. So I'm gonna show you the little wrapping here. See if you guys can get the number there. That's what you need right there. I'm gonna give you a closer look at how I pretty much what I did to the fuel line underneath the car, just to give you guys a closer look. This is the sandpaper that I also use to help me out. You got to be real careful with this because you don't want to mess up the tubing. You know, you don't want to make it thinner. But you know, I use that just a little bit just to get that the rest of that plastic stuff that's on your line. So that's pretty much how I did it, guys. It's not the easiest process, but you know, you'll get it. And yeah, that's pretty much all the stuff I used. Now I will say that you have to get all that rubber coating off, guys. If not, that copper tubing is not gonna slide on. I ended up having to like redo this a couple times, and I kept having to sand it and scrape off and keep doing it over and over until I made it fit, but I had to get all of it off. So just to give you guys a closer look, that slides on like that. Then you slide on your little copper thing there that's gonna seal it, and that's pretty much how it's gonna go on like that, guys. And pretty much you just crank that last piece on, guys. You just twist it in there like that and it'll seal it. You don't want to over crank it, guys, because you don't want to break your fitting, but you know, just get it snug, just get it nice and tight, and that should be good enough. That's all I did. So that's everything that's included in that Earl's fitting, and let's move on. So now back to the car again, guys. This is just footage I had laying around. I'm putting it all together just to show you guys, you know, just to give you guys a visual on how to do it instead of just like writing it or just explaining it by word. I'm trying to give you guys the best explanation as I can. So there's the fitting. I put that on first, and then I have the copper piece. You got to pretty much stuff that in there over the your tubing. Now I'm gonna let this clip play. Now what ended up happening was what I told you earlier. I didn't take off enough of that rubber coating that was on the fuel line. So I had to pretty much take everything off again and pretty much take off maybe another like half an inch or something like that. And I'm gonna just let this play because it's gonna show you kind of the technique I use just to get that rubber coating off. This right here should really clear up any questions you guys have of like how I use the blade and how I angled it and the sandpaper and whatever. Any questions you guys might have with that, this is pretty much how I did it. So just let it play through, guys. Watch it a little bit. Kind of try not to skip through it because this part is kind of important. You know, it has to do with your fuel, and you guys don't want to have any issues with that. So you know, just kind of just take your time with it, and yeah, there's no rush. You know, just take your time and make sure you guys do it right. So the hard part's done now. Got all that crap off of the fuel line, and we're able to slide the fitting back on. So you want to slide it on like that in that direction, and then just slide on the copper tubing, and you guys should be good. So now that you converted your fuel line tube into an AN fitting, guys, so now you're officially a 6AN. Now I'm gonna repeat that, 6AN fitting. That's what you are now. So your fuel line needs to be 6AN, all your fittings need to be 6AN. Now let's talk about what you're gonna need next for a part, right? Now people think that AN fittings and all this is really hard to understand, but it's really not, guys. You know, there's different sizes. It could range from like 4AN or even lower than that, all the way up to like 16AN, 20AN. The higher the number, the bigger the you know, the hose gets. So pretty much an AN is pretty much a hose. It's a braided hose, and the fittings go along with it. So let's talk about what you're gonna need. You definitely want to pick up some AN wrenches, kind of like the one I pictured here. They're really cheap, guys. They're like 24 bucks, and it's gonna last you forever. You also want to get, and it's a very good investment, there's a fitting that goes with for a vise that's gonna help you crank this hose onto the fitting, which is really hard to do, especially when you get bigger in size. So when you get to like 16 AN for like for your coolant lines and stuff like that, it's really hard to get these hoses into these fittings. So it's a really good investment. I use whatever I had at the moment, and also you're not really going to be able to see this fuel line because it's going to be tucked, so I wasn't too concerned about it. But I ended up using, you know, just regular wrenches and stuff. But definitely invest into either two 2 of these adjustable wrenches, or one of these wrenches and the vise AN fitting, like, you know, little thing that I showed you guys. So those are the tools you're gonna need. Let's talk about the material you're gonna need. I found this on Amazon. It seemed like a pretty good price. It's overkill for what you're gonna need. You're only gonna need 2 fittings and maybe like 10 feet of hose, but this one brings 16 feet and then a bunch of different fittings. So now remember guys, like I mentioned before, everything needs to be 6 AN. So your hose and your fittings, you only need 2 fittings. So, you know, figure out your route on your car, you know, how you're gonna route this thing, and pick out your fittings accordingly. I used a 90-degree at the bottom, and at the top I just used a straight fitting, and that worked very well for me. You guys can use 2 straights, 2 30-degree ones, 2 90-degree ones. I don't see anything more than that being useful, but it's up to you guys. You know, just try and figure out what route you're going to be taking. Now you guys can purchase all your fittings and the hose separately. I think I spent about $25 on 10 feet of 6 AN hose, and then my fittings were about $5 a piece. Now with the hose, you guys want to make sure that it's for fuel. You know, most of the stuff on Amazon is not rated for E85, so make sure that if you guys are going to do E85, it's a brand name, like maybe Vibrant or whoever else sells it. I know that K-Tune sells it. It's E85 compliant, so just go with that. I ended up buying one on Amazon that said it was good for fuel and gasoline or whatever, so I just went with that. I've had no problems and issues with that so far, so just, you know, pick your stuff accordingly. Now this is the worst part, guys. Well, my least favorite part, because you pretty much it's a pain to get the hose onto the fitting, like to twist it on and do all that. Now this fitting, like 6 AN, isn't too bad, but when I did my coolant lines, the 16 AN, oh my god. Yeah, it was the worst. And like I said, make sure you guys get the wrenches, because you will jack up your fittings, and it's just a bad look for the engine bay. After you're doing all this work, you know, you're gonna mess up your fittings. So this one isn't too bad because you're not gonna see them, but when you're doing like your coolant and stuff like that, the big fittings that really expensive, the fittings are like 20 a piece, you really don't want to mess them up. So you want to go get that thing for the vise, and then, you know, an adjustable wrench so that you don't mess them up. So, oh, and one other thing, when you guys are cutting your hose and stuff, if you do have to cut it, make sure you guys put some masking tape around it, and then you cut it with like a cutoff wheel or something like that. That's just the easiest way to cut this stuff, and it keeps the hose, like the braided hose, like the braiding on it, it keeps that from just like flaking off and coming off, and that just makes it a lot tougher to get the hose onto the fitting. So just a small tip on that. So I'm just gonna let this footage right here play. It's gonna show you me struggling for like 30 seconds or something like that. But yeah, the struggle is real with these AN fittings and stuff, man. With the hose, just trying to get that on there, guys. You want to make sure that's all the way in. You know, you don't want to mess around with the fuel. You know, you don't want that leaking in your engine bay. So just take your time with it. Like I said before, you know, use the 2 wrenches, twist that on there like that. You want to make sure this is nice and tight, guys. Not all the way. You guys don't want to split this or mess it up. Just get it. Maybe there might be like a 1/4 inch left or something like that before you hit the bottom, but you know, you'll feel when you need to stop. So just inspect it, make sure it's all good, and you guys should be good to go. So here's your finished product. Not too bad, right? It's pretty simple. Now this next part, you guys want to grab that piece from your Earl's fitting. So at your fuel line, you should have the first part you slide on, and then you should have that little copper tubing thing that slides over your fuel line. Now this is the last part to that Earl's thing. What I did, I put this on here first, and I kind of just cranked it on here first, and then I would bring it over to the car and then fully, you know, seal that into the Earl's fitting and just tighten everything up. I just, you know, brought the wrenches with me, whatever wrenches I needed, and just cranked it over there, and then that sealed up everything. Now I wasn't sure if I had this footage or not, but I did. So there's a better picture at it, guys. Pretty much, you know, the steps that I took, bringing over the AN fitting that we just did, and just line that up and just twist that back on there, guys. Should be fairly simple. Again guys, you know, don't tighten it to the point that it's gonna break, you know, just get it nice and snug, nice and tight, you know, to the point that you could feel that, you know, it ain't gonna turn no more. And then that'll seal it and, you know, not allow any fuel to escape or leak. So this end over here is all done. Give you guys a closer look. And I'm surprised I had all this footage, man, but it's really nice. I could show you guys. So that's how it's angled right there. You could either hide it in a wheel well, run it underneath your mount inside the engine bay. You know, you could pretty much go anywhere you want now. And you have all this extra line. Wherever you feel like tucking this thing or wherever you feel like routing this thing, you're able to do it. Alright, so last thing to do is to put your manifold back on. Whatever manifold you're using, whether it's stock, this RBC that I'm using, or whatever it is, just put it back on. So once you figure out your route for your fuel line and pretty much the length for it, now since you're doing all this, you might as well do it the cleanest way. Is to bring it in between your runners on your manifold, just like I circled in the video. Now with the K-Tune fuel rail, you're going to want to decide if you're going to run a gauge or not. That fitting that I'm pointing at right now, that wants to run both. You can run a gauge and bring in your AN fitting underneath. There's also another fitting that you cannot run a pressure gauge with it, and you can only just have the fuel coming in between the runners into your fuel rail. Now let me just give you guys a closer look at the fitting that I'm using. This is the one I'm running right on the screen. K-Tune made it very simple, very easy to use with their specific fuel rail and their setup. You don't have to worry about switching over to like 8 AN for, I'm sorry, to go from 8 AN to like a 6 AN. The fitting is already going to like a 6 AN straight to your fuel line, so you don't have to get like any different fittings or anything like that. This goes right to your fuel line, so as long as you get this fitting, you're all set. Now this one here is your other option. This is so you don't have to run like a pressure gauge or anything like that. It just goes straight from your fuel rail right to your line. Now I think you have two options here, either to go 8 AN or 6 AN. You guys already know to pick the 6 AN option, and yeah, this is just pretty much plug and play for the fuel rail. Now you have to get a K-Tune fuel rail to be able to use their setup. So yeah, just make your day easier, just use their fuel rail and you guys will be all set. Now this next part right here is very important, guys. This is what's gonna come with your fuel rail. It's gonna bring in these two little clamps, and you want to make sure these go into the groove that the fitting needs to be held on by. As you can see in the video right here, once you get them both on there with the Allen screw or whatever you want to call it, the bolt, you want to slide them into that groove and make sure it locks in, and then you want to tighten those Allen key screws. It's very confusing because they just don't include any instructions with any of this stuff, so you know, it took me a while to figure it out, but we got it figured out. Now I threw some Teflon on some of these fittings, and especially the fuel pressure one right there that I have in the video. You want to throw some Teflon, a lot of it on there, because mine ended up leaking the first time I did it. So yeah, just take a little bit of Teflon and throw it on there. After that, man, just throw your injectors in, throw your RBC, you know, the screw, bolt that all on, do you know, put your harness back in, do all that, put the two screws for the bolts, I'm sorry, for your fuel rail. Now real quick, on both ends of your fuel rail, those are both 8 AN. Now your fuel rails, I think it's only going to include one plug or a cap for one end, so you're going to have to find another one. Me, I got lucky, I purchased a black one, so I could just purchase mine from like Amazon or eBay or whatever. That's what I ended up doing. But if you got like a blue, red, yellow, you know, one of them like funky colors, you're gonna have to get one from probably K-Tune, because you're not gonna be able to find a matching one. So you're probably gonna need one more, so just contact K-Tune, see what's up, and see if you could possibly buy a separate one. I ended up finishing this video really late last night, and I didn't really get to do the outro, so I ended up doing it right now. But right now I'm about to head out and go get something else, a piece that I found on was it OfferUp? No, it was on Craigslist. And let me give you guys a clue. It's gonna be something, actually we could probably add that to the wire tucking stuff, because it could be used for that. So let me give you guys a clue. It could be something electronic. There we go, electronic, something electronic or electric. And these voiceover videos, guys, they're a pain in the ass to make. I did not like doing it, but that's all I had for footage, so I had no choice but to do it like that. So hopefully you guys find that helpful, or hopefully somebody out there finds it helpful, maybe even 5 years down the line or something like that. But yeah, I gotta head out, guys. I gotta go meet this guy for this part. So like, subscribe, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. All right.